Welcome to Science, Health and Healing Encyclopedia of Children's Health Core and Ali Academy. I'm Dr. Majid Ali. The subject of this program is Paradoxical Insulin Response Part 3, Changes in Fatty Change of the Liver. In Part 1 of this series on paradoxical insulin response, I told you why I coined this term and introduced it here in the video format, and I also posted an article on kids123.org in the text form. This is a situation where insulin values, the insulin levels in the blood rise when you begin a good insulin reduction program, counter to what you would expect, even though clinically the patient is feeling much better. In part 2 of this series, I gave you the data for a specific patient. The first time I encountered this situation in such a clear, dramatic way that I thought I had to introduce this term, paradoxical insulin response, in the literature, because I did some Google search and I did not find any reference, nor have I really heard anyone speak about it or in any of the books on diabetes that I've read. Now in part 3, I want to give you some explanation of why insulin levels initially would rise rather than fall as would be expected with an insulin reduction diet program, like the one that I introduced. Now in this woman who saw me for GERD, gastritis, irritable bowel syndrome and fatty change of the liver, her peak insulin value before starting Dr. Ali's insulin reduction program at 2 hours was 71, and about 9 weeks later it increased 30% to 101. She lost 6 pounds in weight. She was very happy. She was feeling lighter. She was feeling more energetic, and yet she was deeply troubled. And as I told you, I had never seen a case like that. Now, why would insulin rise? We know in integrative medicine that when you try to do a detox of the liver or the bowel or the blood, initially sometimes you can have negative clinical responses. We also know that sometimes there are negative biochemical changes. For example, I have seen liver enzymes go up during intense liver detox protocol, which I do not recommend. I clearly prefer daily gentle bowel and liver detox to intensive liver detox protocols. But fatty change of the liver is a situation where the liver cells are so full of grease, the central nuclei in the cells are displaced to the periphery, and the whole cell is filled with rancid fat. Now you can imagine that if you try to do a bowel, liver and blood gentle detox program along with insulin reduction diet, there's going to be a turbulence. And liver, of course, is actively involved in the maintenance of blood sugar levels. As insulin drops, liver releases some of the glucose to counteract the effects of insulin. But most of the toxins in the grease and the fatty change of the liver, they're fat soluble. So this initial response seemingly is a negative response, but actually it isn't. It's a very temporary phase, and as you continue, within another 9-10 weeks, insulin levels would indeed drop. As the patient loses weight, gets more energy, and begins to lose this rancid fat in the liver, and the liver comes to its normal size from a state of enlargement, the insulin will also come down. Please look at the other segments in this paradoxical insulin response series. This is an important subject. You know, the deeper you look into these things, clearer your understanding. I often say that when a pathology resident has seen 100 cases of cancer, he thinks one way. When he has seen 1,000 cases of cancer, he sees and thinks another way. When a pathologist has seen 5,000 cases of cancer, he has a different perspective. But when a pathologist, let's say over a period of 25 years, has diagnosed more than 100,000 cancer cases, he has a different perspective. It's the same way. If you do insulin profile test on 25 patients, you will look at insulin one way. If you look at the insulin profiles of 300 patients, you will look at another way. And if you do it, let's say for 700 patients, you will begin to see these responses. The reason I had never seen that before is because I had never asked a patient to have repeat test so soon, 9 weeks after starting the program. This person is a very intelligent, thoughtful woman. She's a very astute observer. She wanted to see what would be the biochemical changes as she is succeeding very well clinically with Dr. Ali's insulin reduction program. And because of her curiosity, she gave me a gift of understanding. I recognized this phenomenon that I had never seen it. It's not in the literature. And that's because I never thought it was necessary to repeat the insulin profile so soon after starting the program. Please look at other segments on this series of paradoxical insulin response. This subject of insulin toxicity as the basis for pre-diabetes, diabetes, and all the complications of diabetes is of central importance. Type 2 diabetes in children, I predicted, would be a pandemic in the next 10 to 15 years. There's a separate program on that. Do me a favor, please forward this YouTube segment to your contacts. Our vision at the core is to provide authentic information which is free of cost, free of corporate deceptions, and free of ideological distortions. Thank you for joining me. Do join me again soon, please.